Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining. Welcome to our next session of the HEAS Seminar Series in Archaeological Science. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce Michał Pisz, a lecturer in Archaeological Prospection at the University of Bradford, who will be presenting his talk titled Archaeology or CSI, Dark Heritage Prospection for Revealing What Would Rather Be Forgotten. Dr. Pisz holds a BA and an MA in archaeology, as well as a PhD in earth and environmental sciences from the University of Warsaw. Over the past 16 years, he has gained extensive experience in archaeological prospection, working on both academic and commercial research projects across Europe and North Africa. His expertise lies mainly in near-surface geophysics and remote sensing applications for archaeological investigations and forensics. As researcher, Michał has been involved in over 40 funded projects, serving as a principal investigator or co-investigator. His innovative work is reflected in more than 30 peer-reviewed publications and numerous conference presentations. One of his many contributions to research is his current development of a new framework called Dark Heritage Prospection, which bridges the fields of archaeology and forensics to examine places of our difficult and often troubling recent past and shedding light on their societal impact. Before joining the University of Bradford in 2022, Michał led research initiatives in Poland and beyond, including the project Understanding the Anomaly, funded by the National Science Center of Poland, since a better comprehension of geophysical responses was also the scientific goal of his PhD thesis. Another project that he was PI of and was concerned with Roman Treblinka in Western Romania, a very interesting project as well, supported by the Polish Ministry of Science and Higher Education. He has held also roles as head of the Archaeogeophysics department at GTT company and as a senior technician at Southeastern Europe Antiquity Research Center. In addition to his academic research, Michał contributes significantly to various societies such as the Aerial Archaeology Research Group and especially the International Society for Archaeological Prospection, ISAP, where he is editor and elected member of the management committee. His very active role in these organizations further reflects his dedication to advancing the field of archaeological prospection. Today's talk promises to provide important insights into how advanced technologies and innovative methodologies can uncover the hidden and often forgotten aspects of our recent past, which nowadays, unfortunately, seems more important than ever. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Michał Pisz, and Michał, the floor is yours. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on the time zone you're watching us from. Today, I would like to present something that might not exactly be considered as lightweight for Monday morning or afternoon. However, it's just like Roland said, it's a very important topic, and it could be now more important than ever, as we are apparently facing very difficult and challenging times. So that kind of reminder of quite recent past might be really important at the moment. So archaeology or CSI, Dark Heritage Prospection for Revealing What Would Rather Be Forgotten. First of all, I would like to issue a warning that the paper will present contents, including some images that might be disturbing to viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. I'm not going to present myself after that very generous contribution presentation from Roland. I'm just gonna brief that with some experience in archaeological prospection and the use of various prospecting methods, as well as background and PhD in environmental sciences on the insights and physical principles of geophysical methods. I think that I have a right tools and skills and knowledge to explore the field of dark heritage prospection. And about the approach and what we propose to call dark heritage prospection, as I mean me and my colleagues from the University of Bradford, were the idea for this, let's call it sub-discipline, emerged. Me with Chris Gaffney, Vince Gaffney, and James Walker came up with this idea, which basically based on my previous surveys on war atrocity sites. So when it comes to prospection, to use of remote sensing and near surface geophysics for archaeology, well, there are some aims and there are some technologies involved. So the aim of archaeological prospection is to reveal and reconstruct features, sites, and landscape from the past. And there is usually little to none that we know about those sites before we approach the survey. The state of preservation of those is usually rather poor, so we're not looking for a well-preserved, recently buried features, or is it a rare thing, unusual thing? And usually there is no time pressure for them to be found unless there is a need for a rapid publication, or there is a time frame within a funded project, let's say. On the other hand, geoforensic search, as I tend to call the entirety of geoforensic applications for revealing crime traces, so that includes forensic geophysics, forensic geology, forensic soil science, or forensic remote sensing. It usually aims at revealing traces of an identified crime. So we're not really looking at something that is totally vague. It often focuses on searching for specific targets. Usually quite recently deposited targets, and there would be expected to be of rather good condition. It usually could be chronologically and spatially defined, as we can narrow down the search area. And on the other hand, it would need to face the challenge of attempts to hinder the detection of searched objects. So there might be an intentional covering up the traces. In some cases, there is also time pressure related to those searches. So where would that put the dark heritage prospection? Dark heritage as a concept, it refers to the uneasy past of our societies, of our humankind. That usually still triggers a lot of emotions, and to address the detection, the search for the remains, for the relics of those sites or events, we propose to create the field of dark heritage prospection, which would combine archaeological theory and technology that is involved in archaeological prospection. The concept of an archaeological site as a crime scene, or the other way around, the crime scene that has become an archaeological site. The approach to the search would be quite similar, but would need to take into the account both of the circumstances, so the deposition as an archaeological site, but also a crime scene. then we would need to face the systematic covering up of the traces. So as no Romans would dismantle the Roman villa down to the foundations, it might be the case for some structures related to dark heritage. Eyewitnesses and testimonies are potentially available, so we are still dealing with the geoforensic search level of supporting materials sometimes. And usually there is no time pressure from law enforcement, so like there is no perpetrator to catch anymore. However, there is a societal demand for justice related to those crimes or events. So we cannot say that those things could be left indefinitely. Why would we need dark heritage prospection? How could we apply it? So even regarding the concluded conflicts, there are still unresolved aftermaths of those. And a good example would be the relationship between Poland and Ukraine. Recently, Poland is considered one of the strongest allies of Ukraine, which faces the Russian invasion since 2022. However, there are still unresolved matters of a genocide committed in Volhynia against the Poles and Jews, which still is a subject of a political misunderstanding and causes a lot of problems on the diplomatic line. So the first great example on how could we use dark heritage prospection, uninvestigated or denied genocides. Well, another tool for fighting against Holocaust denialism. The above mentioned societal demand for justice, but this also concerns colonial empires, so investigating traces of decolonization. Ongoing conflicts, they spawn new areas for investigations, and there is relatively little research interest in this topic for obvious reasons. So what I used to hear, people were saying that this is controversial, that some people might not like to talk about this, that some people might be against getting those projects funded, and eventually that some people would just not have the stomach for this kind of research. This is obvious, and I agree that there is a lot of there are a lot of challenges related to dark heritage prospection. Why is it interesting to me? I during my research career, I traveled a lot. I talked to different people, met people from different backgrounds, and there is lively interest of whole communities and nations in discovering those difficult pasts, especially, as you can imagine, on the side of the victims, not the perpetrators necessarily. And there is the challenge. So there is equally or even more lively interest of some agendas and authorities to hinder those revelation and research, which obviously indicates for the need of such research, as research per definition should be non-biased and just reveal the facts. However, there is also a personal motivation. As a Polish-born and raised in Warsaw, my whole family is from Warsaw, and during Warsaw Uprising, my granddad was taken to Auschwitz-Birkenau, where he spent around half a year until the liberation of the camp, which was exactly 80 years ago. With this research, I'm kind of acknowledging my family history, and I hope that I'm also making my granddad somehow proud of what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so I hope that this background will show you the general direction that I would like to go with this research, and right now, to back it, I would like to present you some of the works I carried out. Some of these works or most of them were parts of bigger projects. There are all the case studies are from the area of Poland, as this is the most obvious direction as a native Polish person. So let's start with the desecrated Jewish cemetery in Drzewica. So we are in more or less central Poland, Łódzkie Voivodeship. The survey was contracted by the County Heritage Office, and the aim of it was to establish the extent of the Jewish cemetery dating back to 1865, which was desecrated and dismantled during the Second World War. Interestingly, the graveyard was scheduled in the communist times. However, back then it wasn't necessary to precisely define the extent of the protected site. So that was the part which was missing in the record. And our goal was to establish the extent of the cemetery so they could get the precise area of protection, which was also related to the a nearby road development, as they didn't want to interfere with the protected area. The site was partly overgrown and used as a dump site and a shooting range in the communist times, so the conditions were very rough. Since it was overgrown with rather young forest, young woodlands, we used GPS RTK live positioned GPR survey, 3D GPR survey with impulse radar Raptor 45, so an array of 8 450 megahertz GPR channels with the effective sampling, horizontal sampling of about 8 by 4 centimeters. Due to difficult conditions and poor RTK reception, it took us like 1.5 a day to survey 0.6 hectare, which is still really good considering the conditions, and that we had to prepare the area for the survey really well. The the first part of the study was the desk research. So I found and used some old maps, 19th century maps, featuring the graveyard when it still existed. And I georeferenced them using the contemporary satellite images. I did the same with the satellite, with the aerial orthophotograph from 1944, where the extent of already desecrated graveyard was still visible. From the outlines of all three archival data sources, I managed to estimate the rough area of the graveyard. And then we just had to adapt the extent of our survey to the field available for prospection. And well, then it was fairly easy. We just had to carry out the measurements. So with the data was processed with impulse radar Condor software. In this case, the first, of course, there was plenty of reflections since the soil was sandy, providing very high velocities of the electromagnetic wave and nice clear signals. We had a good capture of shallow roots of pine trees, and as shallow as some 30 centimeters below ground level, we captured first sets of reflections from potential burials at some, not sure if you could see my mouse cursor, but I'm trying to show the area where the first reflections were captured. Then going deeper at 70 centimeters, the rows of subsequent reflections started to appear. at 80 centimeters, most of the area was dominated by presence of those reflections, and they were slowly fading out at depths of like approximately 1.5, 1.2, 1.5 meters. Based on the analysis of all time slices, we managed to outline around, well, more than 300 individual burials located at depths of 30 to 120 centimeters below ground level. The extent of the individual burials we captured, they were all within the extent of the desk research analysis, so the archival remote sensing materials, which, well, would be the best approximation of the real extent of the graveyard without any invasive intervention on site. So that's how we managed to track down a war crime, as desecration of a graveyard is considered a war crime. We detected individual burials, and we provided a tool for protection of the site. So right now I would like to move to we're still, as with all the case studies, we're in Poland, and we're in the period of the Second World War. This time, the research of my good colleague and friend, Dr. Sebastian Różycki from Warsaw University of Technology, one of the pioneers of this kind of research of dark heritage prospection in Poland, and certainly one of the leaders, PI on numerous research projects on Nazi German death camps and forced labor camps, employing remote sensing techniques, and we collaborate since 2017, mostly on Treblinka and other death camps featured in this presentation. So the first one I would like to present is SS Sonderkommando Kulmhof, which was the German death camp in Chełmno on Ner, which is a village in central Poland. It was the first instant mass extermination center in the Warthegau district, opened in December 1941, so it predated the Aktion Reinhardt, which was the part of the so-called final solution, and it operated over 2 periods until 1945, so it was also a bit longer than most of the Aktion Reinhardt facilities. In this case, the killing was executed in mobile gas chambers, converted trucks using exhausted gases, and the bodies of the victims were taken some 4 kilometers away from the facility to the forest where the corpses were buried. It is estimated that not less than 150,000, but probably around 200,000 people lost their lives in that place. So here is the above mentioned forest. The facility itself, so the palace where the whole process was carried out, the prisoners were taken into. It was blown up in 1945, and what we focused on was the area of the forest where the victims were taken to be buried. That was a pilot survey in Kulmhof, so we only carried out the magnetic survey with Geometrix G858 cesium magnetometer. And even though the pits, as we knew about them, the pits were commemorated. The extent of them was established based on some excavations in the past. There was not much known about this because they were never fully explored, and the magnetic survey allowed us to distinguish between the type of those features, probably, as two of them produced a very strong response, thermoremnant anomaly, and two others were much less visible. So if we would extrapolate those results or just extend the survey to the whole available area, there is still more that we could learn about this site. That we know from excavations. So 4 major discrete responses were captured with magnetic survey, and those were commemorated pits. They differ in the strength and the type of the response of anomalies. There are also some clustering zones, which might indicate on different use of apparently the same type of features, the same type of facilities in the past. And thermoremnants might be indicating on the burning occurring around those 2 pits, which could be also informative for commemorating the site. Although it has to be stressed out that for Kulmhof, the surveying this site is very challenging, because of on one hand, because of the commemoration, on the other hand, because of the survey, because of the forest. And unfortunately, this is not the lone example of such challenges. Even more extreme example of how geophysical survey could be challenged by the contemporary commemoration of the site is the Bełżec, or SS Sonderkommando Bełżec, another extermination camp, another project led by Dr. Różycki. The German death camp in Bełżec was a center of extermination. However, unlike Kulmhof, it was built as a part of Action Reinhardt, so that was the main operation of the so-called final solution. From March, it operated only from March to December 1942, but about 450,000 people lost their lives there. It was the first place where stationary gas chambers were used. So after Kulmhof and the mobile gas chambers, that was the first place where first wooden and then concrete gas chambers arranged to appear as baths were built. The most probable reason for shutting down the facility was the lack of space for more mass graves. So when the area available for those was filled, then they decided to shut down the facility. And burning of corpses and covering trails of the camp's activity lasted until spring of 1943. Then all the buildings and equipment were dismantled until June, so that nothing remains on site. And this is the aerial overview of the site, where none of the facilities could be seen anymore. There are some crop marks, so this is what occupies Sebastian Różycki. He analyzes those remote sensing data sets. And then based on those analysis, we're addressing those crop marks with geophysical prospection. This is, however, how the site looks like today. There is a massive and really powerful memorial comprising a whole field of something that looks like a volcanic tuff, which is basically unavailable for any pedestrian prospection technique. I was thinking that maybe with enough of snow cover over those stones, it would be possible to carry out some surveys, but I think it would be just too dangerous for the surveyor. And perhaps the drone-based geophysical methods would be of some help, but this would need to be further investigated. And of course, there is a great need for the commemoration of those sites, but it's also a good example why the sites should be first thoroughly researched. The survey in 2023 carried out with Sebastian and the students from the University of Bradford School of Archaeological and Forensic Sciences. We tried to find out if geophysics, if prospection methods could be of any use on such a heavily altered terrain. So of course we haven't approached the commemoration area, the main memorial. However, there were some areas that we managed to survey with the magnetic and GPR methods. As expected, magnetic method mostly deliver the information on the noise with the really high extremities of the captured values, and producing some trends that could be potentially related to the operation of the camp. However, it was really hard to distinguish anything particular. On the other hand, we applied 3D GPR prospection in two selected areas. We were time limited and budget limited to do more. And those results produce some interesting features, interesting anomalies that could be further verified. However, it was still quite vague, ambiguous, and the contemporary infrastructure, both overground and underground, obscured the results a lot. So that would be the good example of why dark heritage prospection is needed, and how a commemoration of a tragic events from the past could rule out any reasonable research and reasonable investigations in the past. Some general trends in GPR and MARC results could bring some suggestions on the possible remains, so there could be something to address with further research. However, it is hard to provide any definite conclusions based solely on the geophysical survey. And right now, I would like to move to our main site, the site that we mostly focused on. So that is Treblinka. Also, the survey, the research project initiated and carried out by Dr. Różycki. I would also like to invite you and encourage you to watch the presentation I delivered for Near Surface Geophysics Group Conference in 2021. It's available on YouTube. You could check the ISAP, Archaeological International Society for Archaeological Prospection YouTube channel, and you will find the presentation there, where in more detail I discussed the results of the magnetic survey that I will briefly present here as well. So Treblinka 2. Treblinka 1 was the name for the labor camp, forced labor camp located nearby. Treblinka 2, or SS Sonderkommando Treblinka, was the Axion Reinhardt camp built in July 1942, so a bit after Bełżec, and dismantled in November 1943, so almost a year after the discontinuing of Bełżec camp. It is considered to be the deadliest of Action Reinhardt camps. So estimated 800,000 people have been gassed to death with the exhaust fumes from an engine of a Red Army tank. And it is said that never and nowhere have so many people been murdered in such a short time. So here is the significance of the place. The facility was thoroughly dismantled to cover up the traces of the crime. In 1944, so after the dismantling of the main part of the facility, a mock-up farm was constructed on site, and the Ukrainian settlers were settled there as farmers in order to hide the evidence of genocide. In late 1944, the farm was burned down. The lupin was so some crop was planted across the site to pretend it was a normal farm, just burned down, and no documentation, no documents relating to the operation of the camp, and very few survivors result in very little information about the facility. However, there are some testimonies, both written and spoken, which provide invaluable insights and really are real game changers for the interpretation of our results. The location of the camp is in East Mazovia, central Poland, so it's about an hour from Warsaw. This is how this site looks like today. So again, we have a situation where the commemoration, very, very impressive, very powerful in its expression, it's actually hindering the non-invasive prospection, geophysical prospection. The memorial was constructed in 50s, 60s of the 20th century, so they could have no idea about the development that will allow us to look beneath the soil and be still compliant with halacha law. So basically, no exhumations are allowed on the places of final rest of Jewish people due to their religious laws. Prospection with non-invasive techniques is allowed, however, no intrusion not to disturb any human remains. In such case, the area occupied by the memorial is almost excluded from prospection. So again, two approaches might be tested in the future, either a drone survey or a small single-channel GPR with real-time positioning to try to carry out the profiles around the stones comprising the memorial. There were two stages of the surveys we carried out. I will mostly, well, maybe I won't focus on either of the phases. I just cannot show the emerging results from last year, as they're still not published, and those are really significant findings about the site, probably the most important discoveries done so far. But let's focus on what we managed to establish through nearly 8 years of investigation. So the surveys of 2017 to 2020, where we focused on magnetic method, and 2022-23, when we carried out the 3D GPR prospection. As I mentioned when described the site, what's really different from Bełżec or Kulmhof are the testimonies of eyewitnesses. The best sources of information would be testimonies of Samuel Willenberg, who also created some paintings and some plans, provisional plans of the camp, as well as the book which was written by Jan Kielwiernik, a Jewish carpenter who was employed by the staff of the camp to help with the construction of buildings and some facilities at the camp. So he survived more than other prisoners thanks to his role, and managed to escape during the uprising. And instantly in 1944, that book was published in a few languages. And right now it's an invaluable source of information for us. So the 2017-2020 surveys, we focused on the area of the death camp. So at first we aimed at surveying all the available area, so those areas around the memorial. And then another important area from what was known from the plans, like the plan by Samuel Willenberg here on the right. That was also an area of the supposed reception. So a fake train station and the train railway, as well as some other facilities like Lazaret, which I will tell a bit more about later. These are the combined results of a few years of data collection on site. That's not yet the final stage, as we added some MAC surveys in the forest south from this area in further stages in 2022 and 2023. However, as you can see, there is a plenty of magnetic anomalies all over the area, anomalies of different types, and there is not much of contemporary infrastructure that could trigger them. So most that we're looking at in this magnetic map are the buried features relating to the times of operation of the facility. As you can see, there is a huge differentiation between the intensity of captured anomalies. So besides some regular clusters of not great dynamics, there are some more dynamic and well pronounced clusters, up to really strong responses from what appears to be thermoremanent anomalies. And the interpretation of these results, I mentioned that there were no preserved plans of the facility. However, during the Nazi perpetrators' trials, there were testimonies of eyewitnesses, and some reconstructions of the camp were produced. The most accurate, according to our study, to the study of Dr. Różycki's team, would be the plan proposed by Petr Laponder, who is, I think, a South African enthusiast working in the area of dark heritage, we could say. And he built a mock-up, a model of Treblinka camp, which I will show a bit later as well. And this plan we use as a basic reference, with consideration that it's definitely not too accurate. So when we plotted it against our mag map, and we analyzed some anomalies out of it, it turned out that Laponder's plan might be not very far from true. So when analyzing the location of some features in Laponder's plan and in our map, which is definitely spatially accurate, it looks like if we would consider some shift we could identify the features that we know from eyewitnesses' testimonies, and we know them from and we know their location from our surveys. Considering this, we could provide some insights on the backstage of that death facility, yet just using the results of the magnetic survey. That was not the end, as we continued the surveys with the 3D GPR technique to assess its efficiency in application on those kind of sites. Just to mention, so this case study will be on the reception area. You can see the commemoration of the railroad here, and the apparent location of the train station. So our attempt in this area was to try to find the remains of the potential mock-up train station, knowing that it was probably dismantled and it wasn't too solid, so there might be no real traces of it. However, we found something that appeared to be a intrusion, like a discontinuity in the ground at different levels. And indeed, it turned out to be a massive pit. No traces of any burning in this area. So based on analyzing the eyewitnesses' testimonies, we might expect that it was just a pit for burying some remains of the victims' belongings, some old clothes that were not taken back to Germany during the war. They were just buried on site to cover up the traces. Apparently, approximately 3.5–4 meters deep and some 30 meters in diameter. We think that there might be more of those kind of pits where more of the belongings could be buried. And now a very interesting and very clear example of a successful survey. So the infamous lazaret. The lazaret, which is a German word for a field hospital, it was a fake field hospital. And at the Treblinka camp, it was located nearby the fake train station. It was the final development of one of the mass grave pits that originated during the first phase of the camp's existence. And there are many of descriptions of this facility. They're all compliant, and one of them from Oskar Strawczyński says that the victims fell into a huge fire-filled ditch that occupies most of the area. So from this painting by Samuel Willenberg, we know that it was an area surrounded by a fence made of branches. There was like a little fake building, like a waiting room. And on the other side of the waiting room, there was a pit filled with corpses and fire. So that may indicate on some types of anomalies that could relate to that. And considering the location, so the spatial analysis of those groups of anomalies, as well as their strength, the strength of the responses that we captured, we think that those might be the anomalies, thermoremnant anomalies from the burning pits of Lazaret. Of course, knowing that the facility, so the field hospital, was dismantled itself, we might not expect much of the tangible structures of that hospital. However, the burning pits should still appear as strong remnant anomaly. And in 2022, we carried out the GPR survey over the part of the accessible area. Those are a couple of time slices, so closer to the surface, 10 centimeters. then at just 25, 30 centimeters, we're getting strong reflections from the outline of that pit. We could see the edge of it, which is compliant with the MAG data, and knowing the depth of it, which is up to, let's say, 2 meters. We could even try to define the edge, the extent of the pit, and estimate the volume of it, if that would be desired. So that would be the few of case studies from Treblinka that I could show you now. In 2022 and 2023, we made some significant discoveries. Those publications are in preparation, so not to be in breach with the results. I would like to encourage you to read them when they're released, when we will finally submit them. And some groundbreaking discoveries were made. So definitely we could redesign the plan of the facility right now, and we can be much more accurate than anything that was produced to date. And that's all thanks to dark heritage prospection approach. So the combination of analysis of those evidence from eyewitnesses and our geophysical data. So the impact of dark heritage prospection and in what ways we could reach the public. Seeing is believing, they say. So there are some fiery societal problems relating to denialism of some atrocious events in the past. Of course, very, very hot topic at the moment, Holocaust denialism, but it should not be considered just, it should not be limited just to Holocaust, as there were other examples of high political figures denying other wartime massacres, like the above mentioned example of a Polish-Ukrainian relationship, or the situation with the Second World War crimes by Croatians. Well, not to mention the whole situation in the Balkans in the 90s. So how to make our blobs more comprehensible to general public and also to other stakeholders. So what appears to be very clear for us could be interpreted and translated to something more comprehensible to general public. And as we know, analyzing the geophysical data sets and the evidence produced by eyewitnesses, we could provide some interpretations, possibly even reconstructions. How to make a geophysical evidence more commonly comprehensible, where there are of course numerous methods of visualizing the geophysical data in a comprehensible manner. So from a single GPR trace, we could produce radar grounds. From radar grounds, we could produce time slices. From time slices, we could produce a pseudo 3D animations showcasing not only a certain level of subsurface, but how the discontinuities change in time or in depth. And we could do the same using the 3D GPR technology, which provides the highest possible definition at the moment. But we could go beyond geophysical maps that are probably somehow very self-explanatory, but still best comprehensible to geophysicists. And we could do this in a few manners. So combine the point clouds, combine the interpretations, create the mesh of interpreted anomalies to produce the evidence which would be equivalent with the tangible on-surface structures that we could record with digital heritage methods, so photogrammetry, laser scanning. And so from the geophysical point of view, appropriately interpreted data, of course, better when it's ground truth. It could be equally credible as what we can see on the surface. And then with the same levels of credibility to our evidence, we could propose a buried model of what we think remains underneath in various manners, producing the outputs for public outreach. And as I mentioned before, Petr Laponder with his Treblinka model, which is currently exhibited at Kigali Memorial Museum in Rwanda, the memorial museum of the Rwandan genocide. That could be the way of bringing those covered up crimes back to life, back to the societal awareness. And dark heritage prospection is not the solution to all of those problems. It's just another tool that could help to make it more impactful, to make it more accessible and more comprehensive. To conclude my presentation here, research perspectives, dark heritage prospection network. Well, humanity acts as an infinite source of atrocity. So there are past conflicts, there are recent conflicts like the war in Bosnia, for instance. There are ongoing conflicts like the war in Ukraine or the Israeli invasion in Gaza. There are pasts of the nations which contain the episodes related to slavery, residential schools like in Canada. There are resettlements like in the communist time, resettlements of the whole communities from southern Poland to other areas of Poland, like the Lemkos minority. All of those could be addressed with prospection methods. And we propose to, or I propose with my colleagues from Bradford to create a dark heritage prospection network, with having a word with Lawrence Donnelly, the chair of IUGS Initiative for Forensic Geology. We will be working on creation of such a dark heritage prospection network, which would include the researchers from all over the world to collate and disseminate data and information on dark heritage prospection research, to promote international meetings, seminars, conference and trainings, perhaps eventually develop a committee to act as principal advisors, collaborators, and active participants to some investigations or research projects. And eventually I think it would be desired to develop guidelines similar to like EAC guidelines for good standards in geophysical prospection for archaeology, such guidelines for dark heritage prospection with potential stakeholders and policymakers for the best practice in such applications. That would be all that I wanted to present today. I hope that it was interesting. I encourage you to follow our team on our social media channels, and thank you for your attention.